All right, Woody the Wonder Dog. So
I was just about to
Woody
say,
was the
yeah,
same way. You'd see him, he'd go off in the woods a little bit, and then he'd stop, and he turns around and he looks at Nick, and you're just like, yeah, you're good, buddy.
yeah,
You know,
keep rolling.
off he goes, and then he stops and looks at Nick. So that's that whole
Yeah.
teamwork thing. But yeah, all right,
Well, and that's what
Checking in, making sure everything's
checking in.
good.
yeah, and that's what Tony actually noticed that yesterday at the tailgate before we even got in the field, and he mentioned that to Jack as he saw me messing with the Wonder Dog, and he was like, "See, all the little details from the tailgate on matters."
Mm,
And Woody doesn't know anything. He's 5 months old.
right.
He doesn't know my routine. He doesn't know anything. But you know what? He's never going to learn it if I just like, you know what? I'll teach it to him later. Like, no, we're gonna teach it now. That's I'm not being harsh. I'm not being forceful. I'm not throwing him around. I'm not like, whoa, like he doesn't know what any of that is. Just calm and gentle, and like we're just gonna walk you through it. He's already accustomed to the dog box. He knows not to come out until he's given his name. He knows, I'm working on like I like my dogs after seeing Rachel's. She doesn't like avoid it. She's not jumping off the tailgate, but she doesn't like putting the e-collar on, right? Like she'll just kind of do this weird little head dance, and then you're just like, all right, come on. I started with Quinn to where my dogs put their collars on.
Sure.
They come out of the box, they get on the tailgate, and I'm holding the collar out, and they put their head through the collar.
Mm-hmm.
Those little small things, it's like they understand what we're about to go do. I want your cooperation. If you can't give me cooperation right here at the truck, you're not going
Right.
to give me cooperation out there in the field.
Exactly.
And so I'm starting to do that with Woody, and
Mm-hmm.
even to the send off, to where obviously I'm not going to unfairly ask him to stand there and whoa while I go out in front and do my little routine. But I am still having him at heel, and I'm just holding his collar, and then I'm giving him the release. That's going to build up to my
Yep.
send off a month from then, and then what you just described, I think this is something that I want to talk about and dive in for a minute is just the puppy walk in general. I
Yeah.
think so many people screw up the puppy walks.
We
Yep.
love puppy walks.
That was fun.
We
That was fun
love
to
puppy
watch.
walks.
Yeah. In my opinion, puppy walks, it's one of the most like important things you can do with a dog. Like I think it's one of those, if you wanted to call any of this art, it's the puppy walk. And what's awesome is you're creating a good piece of art with doing nothing.
Right.
Right. A correct puppy walk.
hmm Do you want
Right.
to describe the correct puppy walk?
Well, in my opinion, right, it's an exploration of what I see, what I smell, what I feel under my feet, what I hear. It's all those aspects and what they should see and what they should feel and experience is not me.
Right.
It is. I am so out of the picture. I very rarely talk to my puppies when we're out on a puppy walk. I follow them. It's kind of like what are they interested in? What are they not interested in? And it gets you really excited because when we did the puppy walk with Woody, I don't know, what did it take us? Half an hour to go 50 feet, maybe?
Yeah.
Right?
It took
Because
a
it was
minute.
like, oh, butterfly, ooh, cricket, ooh, bird. It was like, ooh, what's on this stick?
hmm
You know?
Hmm.
And we just sat and talked and things like that. And we're enjoying watching Woody explore northern Minnesota.
hmm
So to me, that's the correct puppy walk. And it's not correcting them, it's not calling them. If they run down the path, I guarantee you at 5 months old, they ain't running far.
Right.
But as we saw with Woody, he got bolder and bolder and bolder. And then that first bird went up and you just shot in the general direction. And he was like, whoa, that was cool. And now it was 10 yards farther off the trail. And then he'd come back,
Yeah.
right? And he'd look at Dad. And it's like, Dad, we cool? Yeah, we're good. We're good, man. And then the second bird went up. And it was like, boom, tails, heads up, everything's wow, this is so cool. Now that added another 20 yards, and that ended up being the one that, and I'll let it's your dog. I mean, that was cool. We talked
Yeah.
about that all the way home
Super,
in the
super cool.
truck. I mean, that was so. That's your dog. If you want to explain what you think a puppy walk is, and then we'll listen to
Yeah.
him tell his story.
So we just got back from the Dakotas, and one of our friends, he had just barely bought a brand new little wire hair, German wire hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just like, look, don't have any expectations. Like, we're going to let our dogs go, and your dog won't even be able to keep up with them, so don't even bother. But our dogs are going to go hunt. Just bring your dog, just let them wander. As we're doing our thing, the only real correction we ever did was, if we saw a hazard and we wanted to steer the dog clear of it, we would bring the dog back. But ultimately, it was just let your dog just go wander. We'll go shoot a bird, we'll bring it back. If it's not like the most, you know, mount worthy bird, let's get the dog back up here and, we'll let them sniff it and smell it. And, maybe we'll throw it back and forth into the weeds and let them go get it and just experience all that. But to your point, I think the key takeaway for puppy walks is just hands off. Don't,
Yeah.
the less input you can put, the better off that dog's going to be. The more you can let them push their own boundaries, they have their own little comfort zone where they'll only go, 10 feet from you. And then they start to realize that that's okay. And then they go 20 feet past you and then 30, and you're just trying to give them the reins to just say, go and do, go
Yeah.
explore, go have fun, go see what's out there. If I see a hazard, I'll steer you clear of it. And then they learn that, when you do, you know, interject or vocalize something that they're a lot more keen to listen to you because they haven't heard from you in, 20 or 30 minutes. And so that was a lot of fun for us out there in the Dakotas. And then to see the same format but applied differently here with Woody, where it was just like, man, the only time you ever said anything was when he came right back up to you and all you said was good boy, and then right back out.
Yeah.
Let him go wander, and you could see him just stop and pause, and his nose would get up, and he'd start sniffing the air, and nothing's there. So then he'd wander off and smell, and then I'm gonna go check that out, and he'd bounce off into the woods a little bit, but he'd only go 15, 20 feet into the woods, and then you could see that he was like, oh, I'm too far, I'm too far. So then he'd come back, and no, you're good, go back out there. So then he'd range a little bit further, and then every time you shot the gun, he's like, oh, whatever that was, let's chase that a little bit. And then you could tell, he'd get like 40 or 50 feet, and then he's like, whoa, I'm way too far, gotta come back. And it was great to just, nope, go explore it. I'm seeing you the whole time, I've got you. Just building that confidence that should anything happen, you were there. And just letting him just, blank canvas, just go
Yeah.
Yeah,
find.
I liken it to learning how to swim.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Yeah, you can bounce around in the shallow end. Your feet can touch. You can push your head up and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then, woo, you get into the where your feet don't touch, and you quick turn around and come back.
Yeah.
Man, by the end of the end of this week, that those puppy walks where he was in the deep end the whole
Yeah.
time,
Yep.
it was cool.
Very
My feet
cool.
aren't touching, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. So everybody needs to hear. Oh, that was awesome.
I think just in general, the puppy walk overall, I think a lot of people, I don't know whether it's impatience or lack of understanding of like how these little small details build into the bigger picture or a mixture of both, whatever, because there's so many things that I hear and see people doing. And, again, I'm not forcing my thoughts upon other people. All I can say is like my thought process after seeing so many people go through this is I think on puppy walks, people mess up in two distinct, significant ways, in my opinion. And somebody might disagree with this, but
You're humble.
my humble opinion. I think number one you hear all the time is put the puppy on the ground with an older dog. All right, so you hear that
Yeah,
one.
that's a good one.
And then the second one, you don't hear it, but you watch it to where people inject themselves into the equation too much. And you heard me tell Tony that yesterday is like, as you're walking, you're gonna see these good little pieces that mentally I'm like, there's a bird under there, and I
Yeah.
mean you saw it to where like those general commonalities you can call out a lot of times. There's a bird under there. There's a bird under there. And Tony, was like, well, why don't we go walk it? I was like, I don't want that dog believing that birds come through me,
Yep.
right? I don't want the dog believing that birds come through an older dog in the field,
Yep.
Right.
right? You have fun runs where puppies can run with older dogs, but I don't consider that as like we're learning how to hunt. So earlier in the week, we had a fun run with Woody's dad, and we went out there, and it was interesting to watch because you have two older dogs out there and they're running and they're hunting. Then you have my 5-month old puppy who he went out 110, 120 yards chasing those older dogs. In my opinion, they're not learning how to hunt the woods. They're not learning the smells. They're not learning what birds do. They're learning how another dog runs through the woods.
Yep.
Do they pick up on some quality stuff in there? Sure. They'll learn how to, actually navigate and
Recall.
checking in maybe. There's some value that there are some things that if you're having an issue with your puppy after, 8, 9, 10 months, that they can get some value out of running with an older dog. But I think a lot of people, when they get these 4, 5, 6 month old puppies, just let them learn from the older dogs. I'm not an advocate of that. And so when I go out on a puppy walk, I want just the puppy making all of the decisions and choices because it's more impactful. Anything that happens, it was their choice. They decided to go out, they decided not. So if you stay at my feet, okay, but you're not going to have fun.
Right.
And so if you come at my feet and I stand there long enough, if I'm bored, eventually that dog's going to get bored. And
Right.
what's it going to do? It's going to go start gnawing on a stick. It's going to go do whatever. And then that's when you can use your pressure, your spatial pressure to kind of just not steer the dog, but yeah, kind of steer the dog to just get them rolling. And that's my main thing is keep the hunt moving when they want to slow down. And then when they're cruising, just follow them. And so when you said that, I'm real quick, even on whether this makes a difference or not. I don't even give an attaboy to the dog when he is coming to me because
Right.
I always want them going away. So when the dog comes and does a check in and a run by and runs back out,
Yep.
that's when I say attaboy,
Yeah.
good boy,
Yep.
keep
Yep.
going, right? Like keep going away
Timing.
from me. Yes,
Timing.
timing. And it's a minor thing, but I think that stuff every single rep is an opportunity to gain that extra step from the dog. And so I want if the dog produces a bird out of its butt, like it has no idea what it's doing, it's just like I smell something and then all of a sudden Feathers gets up and a gunshot rings out. I want that dog being like, what did I do to cause that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Not oh man, dad walked into that thicket and a bird got out, and then you end up with a young dog just looking at you. When are you going to go into the thicket again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you go into the thicket?
Yep.
Right, and that's why it's like everybody wants to see these dogs point, but it's like go back to if genetics are as important as we claim they are, those genetics to point and find game and find birds, it's in there already. You don't have to worry about it. And they're not going to catch a wild grouse. If they catch a wild grouse, you know what? I want that dog.
Yeah.
If you get a 5-month-old pup that can actually catch a grouse or a woodcock,
Just think of the ammunition costs you can save.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tell everybody like, all right, it's puppy walk. Some of them are really entertaining. No matter what, you're gonna get some laughs out of it. They're
Yeah.
gonna do something goofy, whatever.
Right.
But like, just let everybody know, like, hey, he might be 10 yards away from me this entire time. Nothing may happen, but everything might happen.
Yep.
And that's what I've found interesting about these puppy walks because I've really kind of transitioned to this style with Quinn, now obviously with Woody, and it's funny how often to where if you don't force it, if you don't control anything, nature takes over and the dogs find birds.
Mhm.
Even within 10 yards of you. And that's where, like, when we were walking out the other day, is Woody has had 4 grouse points already on this trip that I just haven't been able to seal the deal on. And I've felt bad. But you have a 5-month-old puppy that has pointed 4 different grouse throughout the week. that's a win. And so I'm going out now to where I'm like, at any time these grouse can get up, and so I'm gonna follow the nose. Like if the head goes up and they want to go off the trail, I'm going to encourage that. Okay,
Hmm.
you want to go in there? Let's go see what that nose picked up. Let's go find out what that smell in the wind was. Let's go in there, and it may be nothing, but it could be everything.
Right.
And the one time I didn't do that was what you were talking about when we were coming out, because there wasn't enough time for me to follow him into the woods. Was we were going out, we thought the walk was over, and we had a couple contacts, I think two if I remember correctly, and
Yep.
I just told you, I'm like, dots were connected on this, like I'll take the win.
Hmm.
And I want to say we were just a couple hundred yards away from the truck, like we were nearing the
Yep.
end, and all of a sudden you just saw him, like there was no warning or anything. He just nose up in the air, and he just immediately left turns it into the woods, goes about 10 yards in, takes another 90-degree left, track, 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 grouse gets up. And I mean, 40, 50-yard track, something around about
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
And we're all three just sitting there. And, I shot into the air. That is a bird that none of us even thought was going to be there. That dog's nose at 5 months old picked it out and kicked it up into the air. And I got to connect another dot.
It was so cool.
Then whether that played a heavy impact on the one yesterday is the one yesterday when we were coming out, he didn't really find the bird for us. We're like, all right, we're going to take a shortcut back to the truck. We've done the puppy walk. At that time, we didn't even have any contacts on this one, but
Yep.
this was literally a 20-minute puppy walk. Like we had 20, 25 minutes to just fit it in before we had to hit the road. And so we're going and we start cutting through, and I hear or see, I don't remember which, a bird just kicks out of a little conifer that's, the branches on the ground. I'm literally sitting there. I'm like, that should have a bird. And the next thing you know, there's a bird, as if just like poof, there it is. And I freeze. And it was interesting because you were out there, Ben, with me, and then we had Tony and his son Jack. And so there's a lot of moving components
Yeah.
into this, to where like I have now bird, puppy, child, new hunter,
Yeah.
and myself. How do I conduct this orchestra to get the win that I want? And of course, I say grouse, and everybody does where, Tony's like, I'm gonna shoot it, like, and he starts Elmer Fudding it, and I'm just like, everybody freeze. The bird could have kicked out. That bird thinks that we haven't seen it. Ultimately, is what happens. Like I'm still good. I'm still safe.
Right.
Just calm down. And what did I do, Ben? I'm like, I'm just waiting for Woody to come back. And Woody, with everybody else bouncing around, was a little confused for a second. And he's just like, do I go out on the trail with the kid? Do I, there's a lot of, and then finally when we calmed down, everybody got quiet. I'm like, Woody, I call him back over there, and he starts picking up the scent. And then while he's in odor, bird scent, the bird gets up. And I wanted Tony to shoot it. I was like, I'm not the first one to pull the trigger on this bird.
Yeah.
And he shot, and I saw it kept moving. I'm like, all right, I put it down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was not going to miss that bird. So he didn't point it, but he still recognized like bird odor, and then he got the bird in his mouth. So
Yep.
was it as clean as all the other contacts that I've had the week leading up to this? No, it wasn't. But all of those other instances made me feel comfortable, to where like I still consider it, he's on the board, he's got grouse in his mouth, because I've seen him track and point birds already. Just because he didn't point this one, it's like he's already hunting. You can see to where he's looking at me less and less. He is getting a little further out. What I noticed yesterday, and I pointed out, I can't remember if it was you or Tony, there was a point in the trail to where we had cover on both sides of us, and then we got to this little drainage that probably 20, 30 yards, there was no cover left or right, and the cover picked back up. When we got to that threshold to where there was no cover, he didn't look at me. He didn't
Right.
slow down. He didn't come back to me. He hauled ass to the next cover. And so he ended up like 50, 60 yards away from me for a brief instance. But that tells me he's understanding
Yeah.
what he's supposed to be smelling and looking at. To your point, when you're doing a puppy walk, I want that puppy thinking I control where we go, I control
Hmm.
what I smell. That piques my interest. Let me go explore that. Now there's some things that you're just there to be a safety.
Exactly.
Right.